Nintendo are currently having an absolutely massive sale on the eShop, so I decided to go through each and every one of them and make a list of the best cozy games you can buy on sale right now. And as always, this will include some of the cozy game staples that I talk about a ton, a few new games that I haven't covered on this channel, and plenty of cozy games for those of you on a budget. But before we get into it, make sure you subscribe to the channel to keep up to date on all things new and cozy on the Nintendo Switch. First up, we're going to start with Oxenfree 2. Now, this hasn't come out yet, but if you pre-order the game, you get a 25% discount on the eShop right now. Now, thankfully, this offer looks to be going until the release date of Oxenfree 2, but the reason I bring this up is I've literally just found out that if you have a subscription to Netflix, you can play Oxenfree for free. Basically, all you need to do is download the game on your phone or tablet, and then if you have a Netflix subscription, you're free to play. Just to quickly cover it, if you're unfamiliar with the Oxenfree franchise, they are a narrative adventure game that is wonderfully unsettling, and I genuinely cannot recommend playing the first one enough. It is definitely one of my all-time favorite games, and it's all about a friend group who unwittingly open a ghostly rift. You play and control Alex's story, and the decisions you make will change the course of your friends' lives forever. Now, I'd say these games are like unsettling rather than scary. Like, there's nothing that jumps out at you or anything like that. But obviously, because it's tied to like supernatural goings on and the pressure that every decision you make matters, it's definitely not quintessentially cozy, but I love it nonetheless. So if you have a Netflix subscription and you've been interested in Oxenfree, you might as well download it on your phone for free. Next, we have Harvestella, which is currently 50% off and is just under £25. Harvestella is in my top 15 games on the Nintendo Switch. Ever since I downloaded it, I have been obsessed with it. If you haven't heard of Harvestella, it's a really cool mix between being a farming sim and also a classic RPG. Now, originally when I talk about this game, I talk about its price tag being a little bit steep, but £25 seems absolutely perfect. The story sees you wake up in a strange town with no memories whatsoever, but you're told it's up to you to save this world from something called the Quietus, also known as the Season of Death. During this time, death dust falls to the ground, and anything living that comes in contact with it dies, meaning all the crops will wither and everyone needs to stay indoors. And despite the fact that at the moment the Season of Death only lasts a few days, it is definitely getting longer, and it becomes your job to investigate what's happening and to figure out who you are and why you're even here. Now, the way I'd describe this as being a RPG with farming sim elements, as the RPG is definitely the overwhelming genre of the game. And it has a lot of the classic RPG genre stuff, like you level up, there's classes, and a lot of combat, including big boss battles. But the reason I love the game so much is they've kind of married these two genres perfectly. For example, farming actually has a purpose. Each day you spend out saving the world, you'll return to your home and tend to your farm. And not only will farming give you resources to make meals that can therefore heal yourself and let you regain stamina in battles, but it also lets you make money that you can then spend on upgrading your equipment so you can have an easier time in battle. It does also have a lot of the more classical farming sim elements. There's seasons, seasonal crops, and also once you get far enough, you could also tend to animals as well. The reason I fell in love with this game was 100% the story. Not only is the main story incredible, but I even found myself crying at some of the side quests as well. If you do fall in love with this game as much as I did, you're looking at like a 60-70 hour game for £25. And despite the fact that it has no real cutscenes or no voice acting, it's genuinely such a wonderful experience. Then for 30% off, we have To the Moon, which is currently on sale for £7.55. This is a narrative-focused 2D adventure game that is guaranteed to make you cry. And once I tell you what it's about, you'll definitely understand why. The story follows two doctors who work to give end-of-life patients the chance to relive their life again, and to fulfill what they wish they would have done with their lives, but didn't quite manage to. The only catch to all of this is this only actually happens in the patient's head. The story follows the pair as they fulfill the dream of an elderly man named Johnny, whose last wish was to go to the moon. As you help Johnny, you get to see fragments of his past as you try and figure out what his life was like and why his last wish is to go to the moon. With no combat, a beautiful soundtrack, and a nice mix between adventure game and RPG elements, even though it's narrative heavy, you're guaranteed to never get bored with the emotional journey this will take you on. Then we have Let's Build a Zoo, which is 45% off and just under £9. And this is a really fun, almost stripped down version of a zoo tycoon game, but with a few little twists that make it really unique. Like with all zoo tycoon games, you start off with an empty zoo, but bit by bit the game introduces you to each part of the micromanagement, from selecting which food the animals eat to deciding ticket prices and hiring of the staff. You do absolutely everything to run it, and yet somehow it doesn't feel overwhelming. Unlike other zoo tycoon games, there's actually a huge focus on breeding, where within each species of animal, like let's say rabbit, there's a whole host of different breeds that you can get by selectively breeding certain pairs. Once you've got some of these rarer breeds, you can then trade them with other zoos to get brand new animals in your zoo, which is really beneficial to putting up your ticket price, and it's been a really fun mechanic to get to grips with. The other way this game kind of shakes things up is bringing in moral decisions. Like, for example, you can decide if you want to paint a bunch of dogs to look like a lion in order to fool more people to come to your zoo. Which decisions you make morally gives you moral points, either good or bad, which you can then spend on certain buildings on your zoo. Like, for example, if you rack up a load of good moral points, you get to unlock buildings that have things to do with like sustainability, looking after the animals. But if you get the bad moral point decisions, let's just say it's completely the opposite, okay? It's a fun little game. I have quite a lot of hours in it. It did take me a little bit to get used to using a controller for a type of tycoon game, but they did design it really nicely, so definitely check it out if you haven't already. Then for 40% off, we have Cozy Grove, which actually ends today. This is another cozy staple and definitely one to pick up if you're looking for a game to play for an hour or so every single day. I personally love it as it became a part of my routine, and it's basically a life sim based on in real life time that sees you take care of the request of spirit bears. This is one of those games that I best enjoy whilst also doing something else, like for example watching something on TV, as the quests are basically more or less just fetch quests, but I genuinely love a good fetch quest. The music and the art style always make me feel so calm. And the one thing I really love about this compared to the likes of Animal Crossing is that it doesn't punish me for not having logged in a while, which therefore meant I was more likely to pick up the game in general. Then we have the Story of Seasons franchise, with Pioneers of Olive Town and Friends of Mineral Town both being 50% off at £17. Now, if you didn't already know, A Story of Seasons is actually made by the original developers of Harvest Moon. I don't think we need to go into that again. And both of these games tick every single box you'd expect from a classic farming sim. And although both of these are really great picks in their own sense, it's generally accepted that Friends of Mineral Town is a much more complete experience compared to Pioneers of Olive Town, despite the fact that it's older. And that's just mainly because the world feels a bit more alive in Mineral Town than Olive Town. Both are very enjoyable and incredibly laid back, and I can't suggest them enough. Then for just under £10 and 50% off, we have Slime Rancher Portable Edition. If you're really after a farming sim-like game, but without the classic farming sim mechanics and something a little bit more different, then this is the game for you, as Slime Rancher kind of revolves around slime management and exploration. You are put on a ranch where it's your job to capture and take care of slimes, and use the money you make from taking care of them to explore the island further. You make money by feeding the slimes, and they basically poop out these little crystals named plorts, and you can sell them on what they call the plort market. Now, not only is there a ton of adorable slimes, each with their own diet and care needs, You can also crossbreed the slimes to either make them less dangerous and bad-tempered, or to try and combine their traits so they eat cheaper or easier to find food. This game sees you balance caring for the slimes, like ensuring you have enough food for them each and every day, but also exploring to find new biomes filled with new slimes to bring back to your ranch. This is an incredibly chill game, and a game I don't hear anywhere near enough people talk about. I have far too many hours in it because it's just a lot of fun to play. Then for just over £12, we have Beacon Pines, which is currently 30% off. Do I need to say anything about this, or have I mentioned it too much? I'll cover it quickly. Beacon Pines is a completely unique and fantastic experience, where you play as both the narrator of the book and the main character Luca, where the decisions you make will affect the path in which the story takes. You follow Luca and his friends as they notice some strange happenings in an old warehouse that no one really seems to be bothered by. And as you go, you uncover hidden truths and make new friends in a story you can control. But as the game puts it, most of the paths you take won't have a happy ending, and it's up to you to go back and find the correct path. To control the game's narrative, you can collect these things called charms, and you can use these to affect a branch in the story. But the thing I love is that even though you might be on a branch of the story that doesn't have a happy ending, by completing it you may find a unique charm that you can go back to a previous branch and change Luca's fate. The reason I fell in love with this is firstly, the story is fantastic, and the hardest part of playing it is trying to put the game down before you go to bed. I was genuinely so sucked into figuring out the right path and trying to get a happy ending that I couldn't put it down. Now, don't get me wrong, this story definitely has its dark moments, but sometimes cozy games can be unsettling, you know? Then we have Jenny LeClue at just under £2 and 89% off. I'm throwing this in again as every single time I mention it, I get people thanking me for saying it. It follows a young Jenny, a wannabe detective, as she embarks on a journey of discovering the truth after her mum is accused of murder. This edition not only has an incredible story and puzzle solving, but is also fully voice acted as well. Somehow Pokemon can't have voice acting, but a £2 game can. Then we have a brand new game called No Place Like Home, which is currently 15% off and just over £19. Now, this only just released on the Switch a few days ago, and this is a farming sim unlike anything you've experienced before. You play as Ellen, a girl who visits her grandfather on Earth before she moves to Mars. Only once she gets there, she discovers that not only is the farm completely destroyed, but her grandfather is also missing. So of course she sets off in order to try and find him. And she also decides to clean the world as she goes. In this game, you'll see yourself destroying mountains of trash, vacuuming the rubbish and recycling, all the while trying to restore the farm. And one of my favorite things about this is you can rescue and befriend animals who have gotten lost throughout the valley and make them a little home on your farm. Not only can you explore through diverse lands, but you can also do all the classic farming sim things you love, like planting crops, processing them, and you even get to refurbish and decorate the home of your dreams. Then for 89p, we have Old Man's Journey. This is a puzzle adventure that tells a story of life, loss, reconciliation, and hope. When I first played this, the thing that blew me away for the price was how stunning the illustration was. And throughout this game, you'll uncover the story of the old man's life through his memories, all the while allowing you to interact with the environment to solve puzzles as you go. I'm always surprised to see this game going so cheap on the eShop given how beautiful it is, and it's definitely underrated. Another game for under £1 is Down in Bermuda. In this, you play as Milton, who finds himself stuck on a random island in Bermuda after crash landing during an unnatural storm. And in order to get back home, you need to unravel the island's secrets by cracking codes, solving puzzles, and collecting magic orbs on the 6 unique islands you'll face during the game. And once again, for this price, it's a hard game to resist. We also have Dragon Quest Treasures, which is currently just under £30 with 40% off. And although this isn't typically cozy, I like to include it as it very much has a core gameplay loop that I really do find to be cozy. I don't know what it is about repetitive games, but those to me are some of the coziest games because you don't have to think too much. You can have something on the TV at the same time, and I love it. And whilst there is an underlying story of helping a brother and sister to become fully fledged treasure hunters and build their base to the best it can be, I really enjoyed ignoring the story and just hunting for treasure. You see, you can have up to 3 helpers who come with you treasure hunting. And not only will they help you fight enemies when you come across them, they'll also help you locate treasure. You have a little compass with you that will point you in the general direction, and once you get close enough to the treasure, the monsters will give you a hint. And then once you find the treasure, you take it back to your base to be evaluated. Each piece of treasure has a different value dependent on its condition, meaning that it's not even a bad thing if you end up with multiple of the same pieces of treasure. And whilst it wasn't the easiest game to recommend at full price, this is definitely much better. Then we have Hua. This is currently 40% off and is just over £8. And this is a beautiful puzzle platforming game that for once doesn't have a steep difficulty curve, allowing you to sit back, relax, and enjoy the hand-painted artwork and incredible soundtrack. You play as Hoya, a fairy with no idea who she is, as you join her on her quest to find out why she's here. And although this game is pretty short, it is a breathtaking adventure where you get to meet magical creatures along the way. Then for just over £13, we have Yonder, which is 42% off. Yonder is set in a natural paradise with 8 distinct areas to explore. But despite its stunning tropical beaches and snowy summits, the island is not as tranquil as it first looks, as it becomes your job to seek out these whimsical creatures called sprites and use their powers to clear what is known as the murk, which is gradually polluting the island. But the best part about this entire experience is that it's completely combat free, and the game is centered around exploring the beautiful landscapes, all the while crafting items to help you solve puzzles, befriending creatures, and basically just filling your day with whatever you fancy. And despite being a life sim like no other, you can still do all the classic things like fishing, farming, and more. So if you're after a chill experience, Yonder is perfect. The final game on the list is Yoku's Island Express, which is currently 80% off and just over £3. The best part of this game is if you're a bit unsure after my description, there is currently a free demo you can download and try, and if you enjoy it, then you can pick up the game on sale. You play as Yoku, who arrived on the island, ready to have fun in the sun and live an easy life delivering parcels. That was until you realized that the island had an ancient deity trapped in relentless sleep. And it's up to you to use this fun mixture of pinballing and platforming to explore the island and help those in need. Once again, I might be showing my age, but it kind of reminds me of the good old days of playing pinball. I think it was on like Windows XP. This kind of has the same vibes as that, but also manages to incorporate it into something bigger. Like even the boss battles have pinball mechanics, which I really love. As you play the game, you'll unlock new abilities, and thankfully the story that goes alongside it is also pretty great. That's my pick of this cozy game sale, but if there's any games I've missed, be sure to comment them down below. And if you haven't already, you can click this video here to see what cozy games I've been enjoying at the moment.